Welcome to the Morse Code Podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurially minded creatives in music, film, and writing. My name's Corby, and I'm hoping these conversations inspire you to push deeper into your own work, whether you're a full-time professional or just starting out on your own creative odyssey. I was on a Zoom yesterday with a fan of the show, and she was mentioning how much she likes the variety of guests in the sense of the variety of disciplines we cover. I loved hearing that because I feel like what we're doing over here and what's the through line from episode to episode, whether we're talking with a director, a novelist, a songwriter, a comedian, painter, is this underlying motivation to create for its own sake. For me, this motivation, describing it, understanding it, fueling it, it's at the heart of my own work and is something I think we all have in common. Whether or not you've won a Grammy or been on a tiny desk or just figuring out how to write your first short story, it's this impulse to create in that incredibly mysterious space you step into when making a work of art that I want to explore and encourage and grow. So thanks for being here. If you want to help our cause, consider rating us, subscribing, and all those things that you know we already want. Our next guest is basically a modern-day folk legend. Steve Poltz broke out in the 90s when he co-wrote a song with Jewel called You Were Meant for Me. You know that song. That put him on the map, but I think it's fair to say he lost the map a long time ago. He's been wandering the planet ever since, singing songs, making advertisements for his side hustle as an attorney for dogs, his written recollections of shows and experiences and people he's met and thoughts he's thought come so often that you'd be right to wonder when he has time to write new songs. It's why he's emerged as this kind of live phenomenon, celebrated passionately by a diehard fan base worldwide. I shared a show once with Steve, and unsurprisingly, it was the same night I met Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. And I stayed in touch with Steve for years after that, because weird things happen when Poltz is around. This interview was the most fun I've had on the Morse Code Podcast so far. We talked about Steve's early years, his long tenure with the Rugburns, and a little of that time he spent with Jewel. But we also talked about heavier stuff, addiction and sobriety. I asked Steve how his motivations changed when he got clean, and his answer is worth the listen alone. One thing about Steve is that he's better than just about everybody I know at making you feel like you're the center of the world. Time and again in this interview, a few minutes would pass before I would realize that he was interviewing me. So there's that. All right. This episode is sponsored by WriterFest, a creative gathering for aspiring writers, published authors, screenwriters, poets, and songwriters in Nashville. Attendees enjoy keynote talks by the best book, song, and screenplay writers in the business, as well as in-depth breakout sessions with professional editors, literary agents, filmmakers, and music industry insiders. WriterFest is happening November 22nd and 23rd. Find out more information on writerfestnashville.com. And now, here's my conversation with one of the most loved and lovable folk singers in the game, Steve Poltz.
That song I wrote with Gary goes, it's like those basic chords. Remember those?
Yeah, for sure. It's like, to me, like doo-wop, gold.
Which makes me so happy. The opening line goes, I rewrote this song I wrote about you. Those words of love no longer ring true. Was a sweet melody.
Nice.
About the love of you and me. So I had to rewrite the song I wrote about you. I put duct tape on the tattoo of you on my face, so I don't have to see you every time I shave. Gonna save up some money and cover you up, honey. But for now, It's a new tape every day. This song will never make the chart. No. Anyways.
Yeah.
It's cool. The next verse, and it's not meant to be funny, but it's kind of funny.
Well, it doesn't start funny, but it takes a funny turn.
But it goes, the next part goes like this. You not only broke my heart, this song will never make the charts. It's that same old stuff we've all heard before. And no one wants to pity me for the image that once covered me. And nobody wants to see that anymore. And then the last part just goes, I rewrote this song I wrote about you. It could have been a big hit. Now my chance is through. 'Cause now it's nothing more than the sad old lonesome blues. So I had to rewrite the song I wrote about you. And tomorrow I'm going down to get my new tattoo, singing the rewrite I wrote about you.
Beautiful, bravo. That's great, man. I mean, you've obviously played through it a few times since you wrote it, because you got the lyrics are mostly up in there.
Oh, dude, and I don't know what it is about it. It's just whenever you have a brand new song, if you like it a bit, like all I think about is I can't wait to open a show at Halifax with that song.
Yeah.
And just, because you know, like when you play in a small club, the Carlton only holds 120 people, so I have 5 sellouts, but it's only 120 people a night. Low ceilings, great
basement,
sound.
old OG basement style.
Yeah. And every show will be different because it's just, I got a lot of songs, so it'll be so fun to do that.
It's going to be great, man.
I just wanted you to hear it.
I'm glad. Thanks
and
for
I don't
sharing.
know, because when we first did it, I was like, because I came up with the thing about, I put duct tape on the tattoo of you on my face. I go, we should change it to on my chest so I don't have to see every day. And Gary was like, no. The face is so good. I go, but it stands out so much. He goes, it doesn't matter. And I've learned so much with him.
Have you written with him a bunch or just the one?
We've written like 5 songs now. I recently just met him. And I feel like I met this old dude who, normally when I write songs with people, I think I'm at their level usually. Not in a bragging way. What I mean is I feel like, okay, I can hang with these people and I'll throw this out, I'll throw that out. But writing with him, I'm like, wow, he offers some insights and he's really good at like being Mr. Miyagi and trimming down the little plant. What are those called? Those
bonsais?
Yeah, bonsais.
Yeah.
And getting rid of all the detritus and all the extra stuff. And I'm learning from him. I'm like, wow. And he'll say to me things like, no, that's long enough. That song's good there.
So nice to have that kind of like spoke from authority position, you know what I mean? Like,
and I didn't believe him at first.
Advisor. Yeah.
But I didn't believe him. I was like, no, it needs more. Like a part of me is thinking, no, it needs more. But that dude has written a lot of songs, and it's neat to kind of trust him.
I think it's that. The track record speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You know?
So anyways, we're listening to Steve Poltz on WXRT out of Chicago. It's a Tuesday night. And remember that show Coast to Coast?
Dude, on Westwood One Radio Network.
Yeah, what was that guy's name? That was so good.
All those. Okay, first I have to say, Steve Poltz, thanks for coming over and spending some time with us. We are off and running, as I would expect with the likes of you, sir. We were riffing on AM radio growing up to the AM sounds in our respective places. Steve really in LA itself, and me in the backwoods of Idaho, but AM knows no bounds. And dude, I listened to so much AM talk radio. My parents found me a little tiny AM transistor radio at a garage sale, and for some reason, they let me have that, little knowing that I was like, oh my God, I'm going to listen to this, you realize. And so I would lay in bed in the bunk beds. I had the lower bunk and my brother had the upper bunk, and I'd have that thing on and I'd listen to TalkNet. Tune in, turn on TalkNet. And it was Neil Myers TalkNet radio. And it's just like people, it's like late night TalkNet before the internet and stuff. And people would call in with their very grown up problems. And, and just talk them out.
How old were you?
I was 8. What? And I learned so much about the world of adults night after night. Oh, my God. It's good stuff. But we're here to talk about you, sir.
Whoa, that's so amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, childhoods are just times of magic wherever they are.
Did the radio ever scare you?
Tell me more about that.
Okay, I used to get scared because since we're talking about being a kid, having an AM radio, I would be under the sheets with the AM transistor radio, and it would be like 1966, 67, 68, and it would be, and then I would discover FM too, but I'd have KHJ, and then KRLA, and I used to get scared because certain songs would come on, and there was this song by the Small Faces, and it was called Itchy Coo Park, and the song was like, we can skip out school, won't that be cool? I'd like to go with you someday. What will we do there? We'll get high. What will we touch there? We'll touch the sky. It's all too beautiful. And I would listen to it and I'd be scared. And then there was another song that went.
Why do you think that is, though?
Because they were talking about skipping school and getting high, and getting high wasn't as ubiquitous as it is obviously nowadays, where you can buy weed at the Apple store. And and it just seemed like, and there was all these protests going on, the Vietnam War, there were assassinations. My first memory was my mom crying during John Kennedy's funeral.
Wow.
It just seemed like every day there was something horrible happening.
There's a comfort in this story for our times right now, because this is 1967 and the world was on fire.
Yes.
And maybe things don't change as much as we feel like.
Fire. Yeah. There was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh my God, that's way scarier, I feel like, than
we had to get under our desks in case a nuclear bomb was coming. We'd have to practice. Yeah. I mean, that was all real. And so it all goes back to me to that Bill Hicks bit, the comedian Bill Hicks, where he says, I turn on my news, death, destruction, fires, floods, blah, blah, blah. He goes, but I look out my window, it's like, tweet, 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 the birds, the sun's up, and I turn it back on, and I go back into my backyard. It's a great bit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, and that's not to belittle all the problems that are in the world at all, but it's also, I think sometimes we got to step away, put the gun down. Yeah. And the gun is our social media, our phone that is constantly, our phone is constantly interrupting us nowadays.
There's this guy, he wrote, Yuval is his first name. He's very famous now, and he's like an advisor to the emperor of Europe. What's the guy's name? Klaus Schwab, who's kind of a little bit of a shady character, maybe, from certain schools.
What's his name?
Klaus Schwab is the guy.
Okay.
But Yuval is the first, and he wrote a book called Sapiens. It was a huge book a couple of years ago. People listening to this probably have read it. And but I just was watching a thing yesterday with him talking about what's wrong with the world. Okay, in short, that's a paraphrase. But one of the things he was saying, it was just like we live in a state of constant excitement by stimulation. And he's like, humans are not wired to do that, which is nothing really astounding to say. But like the idea of excitement, that's really true. We're like, it's kind of a thrill to turn on your phone and like see whatever's next. And if you don't like that, what is it? And it's very disturbing to one's sense of equanimity, you know? And I noticed how hard it is for me to turn it all off and truly unplug. Like, one of the things that's really fun and helpful for me is to leave the phone at home and go for a walk. It just feels like an ancient practice by today's standards, but just like those. And
then
things.
You're with somebody like, you're going to leave your phone at home?
Are you insane? How will you know your steps?
Yes. No,
you might as well not even exercise if there's no record.
You're so right. And, just before we had these phones, I would just get lost on the guitar. And I'd be in some random tuning, like, and memory of this is, so I was living with Jewel. We're living in La Jolla, and we're sharing this tiny little, probably 500 square foot apartment, maybe 400, on the beach. I had always lived there, and she moved in with me, moved out of her van, and she always had her guitar tuned by ear into some weird tuning. We didn't have Google back then to look up a weird tuning. She would just go, this sounds like a pretty chord, and then start making up her own chords. Then I would wake up in the morning, might have to go somewhere, or she'd go surfing, or who knows what. I'd grab that guitar because it was close, and I'd start figuring out chords. And next thing I know, I'd write a melody, and I'd be going, oh, that's neat. Where's my tape recorder? You know, I mean, I have to get one of those Radio Shack tape recorders or whatever. I don't know, there was something about those times of just allowing yourself to get lost where I compare these phones to like cocaine and hamsters and our lab rat, and where he would hit the feeder bar because he wanted more of the cocaine. That's what these phones are. It's a different form of cocaine, and it's like, I need the next hit. So I keep scrolling on Instagram. Who did what? What did they do? Where are they playing? And then I might find myself comparing myself with others. Why are they playing Newport Folk Fest and I'm not? Or why are they blah? Who knows?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or just seeing something that's going on in the world, some horrific stuff, and going, oh, so-and-so's on the side of the Palestinians. These guys are on the side of the Israelis. Oh, I wonder if they're going to hate each other now. They're both hipsters or whatever. You know, like trying to find out what's going on in the world and just going, shh. And all that time, I have not been writing a song. Yes. This is all just dumb,
wasted.
I'm a lab rat hitting the feeder bar for more cocaine.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how strongly that resonates with me in not a happy way. That doesn't make, it makes me happy in a sense to know that I'm not alone.
No,
I think
you're
that's
not.
A ubiquitous feature of modern life for all of us. And that makes me feel like the new cachet and the new way forward, cachet is maybe the best way to put it, is like time apart, unplugged time. To like the more, that's going to be, it used to be like information was at a premium. Now there's way too much information. So much information that we don't even know what's real anymore. It's just overwhelming and unhelpful. And so the new thing is like tapping into some perhaps return to an ancient atavistic reminder of eternal truth or some approach to that. I don't know, but it's a return to slowness. I feel like is going to be our saving grace, if there is to be one. Anyway,
to add on to what you just said, though, about going on a walk without your phone, that really hit home with me, because the other night, 2 nights ago, I was at home here in Nashville, and I was with my wife, Sharon, and we recently got a screen porch built so we can sit outside and not get eaten by the mozzies. And so I said to Sharon, I go, I'm going to leave my phone upstairs and just sit on the screen porch with the candle on and just hang out with you. And she was like, thank God, because I can like get lost in stuff, I should post about this, or I should do this. And man, I got to remember how good it felt to not have that stupid phone by me and to sit there with a candle burning and just listen to the sounds of coyotes eating an animal.
Which is a frequent feature here in East Nashville.
Yeah. Or the owls going nuts.
Yeah.
Whatever that sound is.
Totally.
So it was, anyways, I just wanted to add on to what you said, because I think I need to really learn to put down the gun.
Yeah.
And there was a song by The Police, Too Much Information Running Through My Head. And then a song by Bob Dylan, Everything Is Broken. Both of those songs are like, even though they're older, they fit really well today. What are we here to talk about anyways? This is
We're here to talk about you, but we're doing pretty good.
I like
we're
this.
We're doing pretty good.
No,
so
we're
far.
having a good discussion. I feel like it's...
Well, I've wanted to talk to you for so long because I've seen many of your shows. We played a show together once at Asbury Park at the Saint. Steve Wozniak was at that show. If you remember that.
I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you were there for this part, but Steve is a character, as you
know. He loves you.
Well, it's because of that night. He came to see you. And I had a little time with him. I remember he gave me his business card, and it was just like from the future. It was this like stainless steel thing with like a hole punch, like how computers used to be. But that was his name. I mean, he's so like you get an email from him. Not that I get emails from Steve Wozniak on a regular basis, but when you do, it's like and his name is written upside down in like some kind of crazy.
Yeah,
only the person who invented the computer could have that sort of say so on how to communicate. Anyway, so. I've seen you play. I've played with you. I've admired you from afar, and you're so big on stage. You're such a big personality, and like the Wikipedia says, you play good old fashioned sing along shows. That's how it characterizes you, and that's not terribly inaccurate. I feel like that's fair, but there's so much going on with you. That's you've lived a long time. You've had many iterations, happy and sad. And with that comes a lot of wisdom. And I just be like, part of this podcast is to tap into some of that. And I want to know, maybe to get into that, perhaps. We'll see where it goes. Who knows? No pressure. But what got you going in guitar? Maybe that's a good start. Like, why did you have some early indication that you had some talent for it? Did somebody give you encouragement? Was there a girl involved? Did you have a talent show? I don't know. What were the early situations?
1966. We're living in Pasadena, California. And my mom's brother, Uncle Louie, piano player, genius, really smart, and gay in 1966, which is like,
wow.
He had moved out from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and that was like being Brokeback Mountain type stuff back there, like where everything had to be on the down low. Like there were coal miners and stuff. You would get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
So he moved to, what was open Los Angeles in 1966. And then he lived with us, and he loved the arts, and so he taught me to sing. He tried to teach me piano, but piano never took, and I'm so bummed. But he took me to see Julian Bream, classical guitarist, at the Hollywood Bowl, and I've never forgotten it. And it was me and my Uncle Louie, and I just sat there with my mouth open, just one spotlight on this guy playing these classical guitar pieces. And I think he had a lute as well. One person holding the whole show.
At the Hollywood Bowl, no less.
And so I left.
And that's before big screens.
Totally.
That's just like if you're back there, you're seeing like a little dot, and hopefully the sound's good enough, but amazing.
Yeah. And I remember when we left, my uncle called me boy. He always called me boy, and he'd snap his fingers and he goes, "Boy, what do you want to learn to play? Piano, banjo, or classical guitar?" Like, I've never forgotten this. And I said, "I want to learn classical guitar," because I just saw this guy up there. And so I remember for Christmas, he gave me a box set of 3 vinyl records of Julian Bream, which I wore out. And then my parents looked for a guitar teacher, and I started playing guitar because of that.
Wow. And so you
experience.
So in those early lessons, even with the classical guitar approach, I have never taken classical guitar per se, but do they start with chords, foundation, like here's a G, here's a C, here's a D kind of thing? Or is it more
it was more like reading music and learning to use your fingers and reading
rest stroke. I remember some of those things.
Sight reading, pieces by Bach and by Fernando Sor. There were like beautiful pieces where you would just get lost, and you would really. I remember the lessons were always learn how to practice as slowly as possible. Like take 2 measures. And if you can't play them super slow, you're not going to be able to play them the way they were written. So
still
I would just
great advice.
Really learn to just go. And to this day, I still will play a song so many times at home that I think it will drive Sharon crazy. I need to be away in an area where she can't hear me, or I'm singing really quietly, because nobody knows this. I will play a song hundreds of times. I want to be inside the song. And I don't listen really much to other music. Like, I know Gillian Welch and Dave Rollins have a new record out. Fat chance I'm ever going to listen to that whole thing from start to finish, because there's too many songs I'm always writing that I'm working on. I'll listen to a song on a road trip, but even on a road trip, a long road trip, I'm listening to my voice memos because I have so many half songs and other songs, and I'm thinking of that. I'm obsessed with it. I'm in this game, and I will listen to one song by somebody, and that's it. Like Elliott Smith, I'll listen to Independence Day. I probably listen to that song 500 times, but I'm not going to listen to everything. I don't have time.
What do you listen to? You're pretty exercisey. Are you? Do you run a lot?
Just
do you
walk.
jog? Oh, you walk.
I'm a walker.
So you won't like listen to, I mean, that's a little bit easier to understand. You wouldn't dive into a record or something like that. That's when I do all my listening.
I listen to podcasts, or I make calls. I'd rather make a call.
I do too. It's a great time to make a call.
Isn't it?
I will get, if my phone rings and I'm at home, I will immediately, hopefully my shoes are already on, I will immediately walk out the door and answer the phone. It's just it's just so nice to do two things at once, because we have to be productive in this day and age. You got to get
Who do you talk to the most? Do you have a friend that you feel like you talk to?
I talk to, that's a great question, because I don't talk to anybody. This is why I do this podcast in a way.
Because I have one friend I talk to a lot.
That's so great. I have a friend I have a beer with now and then. I don't have a good answer for that.
My friend that I talk to a lot, and I fell into it, as a guy named Bob Schneider from Austin.
I love that guy a bit too much, probably. Just his music from a distance. I don't even know who he is, but like he's
he's
freaking shows. His live show I saw, I think I've seen 3 times, and they were on the West Coast, all of them, San Francisco and Seattle, and he had a band with him every time, and the band was so great.
Yes.
And he had maybe you can fill in some gaps for me just for a second on the Bob Schneider note. He had a keyboard guy with him who was like, he was like in a jumpsuit,
Ollie
like a mechanic.
Stack.
Yeah, and did he start as like a super fan and came to all the shows?
Yes.
That's like that guy.
Yes. He plays accordion and horn, trumpet.
And he's all in, and he's just like, he's such a fun showman. And like, I don't know, there was something so jovial about his spirit that contrasted with Bob Schneider's just like, he's cool, he's handsome, his songs are all like slamming. He's just like,
and he's dark.
He's dark, yeah. And then there's got this wild guy around, like he was very theatrical. So anyway, I'm such a fan. So you talked to Bob Schneider on the regular.
So what happened was, back in the 90s, he came to Club Lingerie in LA, in Hollywood. And I was on stage, early 90s, maybe late 80s. I was on stage with the Rugburns, and we were all wearing black suits with thin ties. Pulp Fiction had just come out, and we were dressed like that. Maybe it was the 90s, I'd say. And that's why, and he saw the Rugburns, and then he started this band, the Scabs, because he liked what we were doing, but I didn't meet him then.
What was it about the Rugburns show, do you think, that would made him like what you guys were doing?
Well, he said prior to that, he was writing these dour songs, and then he saw how much fun we were having on stage, and he went, we need to bring the party. So he started the Scabs, and they started having these shows that would become these parties. The Scab shows were like these legendary shows. He was in a band prior to that called Joe Rockhead. And so anyways, then he got this record deal. He started dating Sandra Bullock for a hot minute, and I went to dinner with both of them in Austin, and she couldn't have been nicer. And then Bob, for whatever reason, took a shine to me because of my probably sunny disposition. I was the opposite side of the coin to his darkness.
He's a brooder.
He hates everything.
Yeah.
And he's so funny because he will tell you he hates anybody that's more successful. He just
admits it.
Just tell you, he goes, I don't even want to know if they're doing better business than me. I hate them already. Like, he's so funny how he says that, and I'm always like, no, they're great. They're this, because I'm always trying to look for the positive in things.
Yeah.
And we're going to do 4 shows together coming up on the East Coast where we're going to trade songs on stage. But he's into this thing called Chimp Empire. And he said, we're going to be like 2 chimps. I'm going to end up hating you because it's territorial. Whereas for me, if I do a show with somebody on stage, I want to see that person shine. Like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
And so Bob and I discuss these kind of things. We discuss literature. We discuss film. We discuss comedians. And for some reason, he'll always call, or I'll call him. and I'll go on a walk and it'll be like a 2-hour conversation.
What a great friendship, man. That's what a great gift to one another you each are.
No, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I did have other friends like that, but they've become really MAGA, and it's really put a dent in 2 of my relationships of people that were on the wrestling team with me in Palm Springs High, where we don't even talk anymore. And it's really sad, because what does it really matter? Somebody could just shoot holes in what I'm about to say, but what does it really matter if your friend is MAGA? Like, are they allowed I don't know. Like, somebody could say, are you kidding? It's like supporting Hitler, blah, blah. Somebody would yell at this and put holes in it.
Somebody is right now.
Yeah, but what I have to say is this. I'm obviously not the one who was the MAGA guy, as you know, but talking to them, we reached this impasse, and it's gotten horrible, especially with one guy who I was super close with. This guy, we were so close, and it's hurt me, and I feel like he has died. And he basically said to me in a text, "You're dead to me." Because, and I don't even, and I never even bring up politics with these guys. I just don't, because I know we're on opposite sides, and what good is it going to do? It's just going to cause this uncomfortable. And I know maybe we should talk about these things, but it's so horrible. These memes this guy has sent me. So I finally had it, and I said, I think these are the lowest form of intelligence. I go, if you're going to write something out in support of a candidate, put it in some sort of cogent form and show me how your mind works, rather than some dumb racist, homophobic meme, which I find just like, I don't find it horrible in the way where some people would be like shocked. Yeah. Believe me, I know this world is a mean place. It doesn't shock me. It's more like, it's just like, come on, it's boring. That's what I said. I said, this is boring.
It's fucking boring.
Yeah.
Politics are fucking boring to me.
And so that happened with 2 different friends, and it bums me out because we have so much in common. Yeah. So much in common. Yeah. But it's come down to this chasm. Yeah. And you're at loggerheads with somebody, and here you are, and there's this big divide based on something that really, going back to that Bill Hicks thing, I turn on my TV, blah, 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 blah. I go outside and the sun's shining.
Yes. I know. I mean, that's another thing, that the internet, the phone thing, it just drives you toward those little dead ends of human experience.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, exactly. And whereas if you talk to anybody in normal life, I mean, there are exceptions to this, but people don't just like bring up politics first thing in human interactions. It's you are inclined when you meet a stranger or a friend to kind of lean toward what you may or may, you might have in common. And that's what
I changed the subject because I'm Catholic. I was raised so Catholic. I might not still be Catholic, but I'm always going to be Catholic, if that makes sense.
On some level, yeah.
I'm Catholic because I was raised that way. So we sweep everything under the rug. If stuff starts getting a little too intense with a friend and it's politics, I want to change the subject.
Yeah. You make a joke. Like that's what I do. To my, maybe it's not always the right choice, particularly if my wife and I are having an argument about something. If it gets too hot, I'll always like try to throw a little levity in there to just be like, hey, we're all people here.
Dude, yeah, I have a friend who's he started off as my accountant. He's still my accountant. And he's full on, he votes for Trump, and he's very conservative. And we get along great because I've learned to just say, hey, man, I'm your liberal friend. Yeah. Who still wants to save money on his taxes. And he laughs and he goes, you know what? If we were all alike, the world would be horrible. 100%. He goes, I don't care who you vote for. I want you to have whatever your choices are. And so I like it that we are able to laugh about that. Mm-hmm. He's my conservative friend. I'm his liberal friend. Like when you used to see Mary Madeline and James Carville.
And they were partners, right?
Yeah.
And opposite end.
She's Republican, he's Democrat. Yeah.
Great.
They were
famous,
married,
top
right?
shelf.
Or were they living together?
Yeah, they were partners. I don't know if they were married or not, but they were like lifelong partners and super well-respected and articulate advocates for their relative positions.
For their teams.
Yeah, for their teams, Republican and Democrat. And there they are. They came together. How beautiful is that of a love story? Man, I'm with you too. I tend to veer away from politics in general, and just because of it's like on some level, I feel like you choose where you want to live in terms of the strata of human experience. And I am just in love with talent and beauty and songs and people striving to be bigger than themselves, whatever that is. And I, whatever, I watch stuff and I'm like, well, that's fucked up, or he's wrong, or what. I have my opinions too. I don't want to live there. And I don't want to, like, people are so complicated that it's just much more interesting to look at, to put it really simply in Sunday school terms, like, we're all children of God.
No, you're right.
And I think of it like that. And I like the person who's the ugliest person that's so mean spirited or the biggest troll. I'm like, that kid, that mean guy was a 3-year-old once, and maybe they were a terror, but they were a much more lovable version of who they are now. And it's like, I can still see a little bit of that in that person. And I think about myself, and I'm a mess. I'm like, I ain't figured it out yet. And so who am I to judge somebody else for their, whatever perspective? I'm not the guy that knows everything.
Did you ever read David Foster Wallace, This Is Water?
No, I know his work, but I haven't read that.
So he has this thing out that I highly recommend to anybody listening right now. It's called This Is Water. It was a graduation speech he gave at a university. It'll take you just probably 20 minutes to read it.
Well, if
I try to read it once a week.
On the YouTube, we'll throw the card up right now. You can click the link.
I save it on my phone, and I read it once a week, just like I like to read the prayer of St. Francis every couple days. Make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Like simple. This David Foster Wallace thing is so beautiful because he's talking about you're in a store, there's a line, your mind's going negative, you hate the guy in front of you, you hate the woman behind you, you're looking at that dour look on the checker's face, and there you are in this store, Kroger or wherever, and you're waiting and you're hating them all, and somebody took your parking space, and you come out and you almost back into somebody, and somebody honks at you. He flips the whole thing on its side and starts saying, what if you looked at it like this person who honked at you has a sick child in their car and they've got to rush to the emergency room? What if this person just got a cancer diagnosis? Now, none of this may be true. He posits this whole idea that, what if? And you start training your mind to look at people with empathy, like you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what anybody's going through. And I try. It's like in Pulp Fiction when Samuel Jackson wants them to get his wallet out, and they're in that restaurant, and the guy's wallet, and he goes, I'm trying real hard, Ringo. I'm trying real hard. Normally I'd pop a cap in your ass. Yeah. But I just want my wallet back. They give him his wallet back. He goes, I just want to walk the earth. Like Kwai Chai Kane, like Kung Fu. Like he's trying. And that's how I feel in life. I'm just trying. And that David Foster Wallace thing is so brilliant. Obviously, I mean, he ended up killing himself. So maybe I shouldn't read it.
I think that it's worth reading. I remember reading.
It is.
Yeah, I started trying to read Infinite Jest. That's the big one that he wrote.
Yeah,
like
that's hard to
pages,
read.
And I'm just like, I can't. I
know.
But I've read his smaller stuff, and I really enjoyed it. Did you get wiser when you got sober, do you think?
I don't think I've ever been wise, Corby.
Yeah, well,
I don't think I'm wise
relatively
at all.
speaking.
Yeah.
I said wiser.
Yeah, relatively. Yes, because when I drank, my friends called it bad idea guy. And I have a friend, I got to find it. He wrote a paper. I can't remember what it was, but it was like the 4 stages of drinking with Steve Poltz or something. I got to ask him to, and he would say the first one, he said by the time bad idea guy comes in, because I would be in San Diego and we'd have a few drinks, and then bad idea guy will suggest, let's go get, an 8-ball of Coke. Yeah. Let's drive down to Mexico. Let's just keep going south, like wherever. Bad idea guy just does not make. So I feel that I had this racquetball coach. I went to Grossmont College in San Diego. It was a junior college before I went into San Diego State and then USD, the Catholic one that I graduated from. But I went to Grossmont College and I took racquetball as one of my classes. This might sound funny, like, what do you mean you took racquetball? Well, I liked racquetball. And the thing I remember more than anything in college that I learned was from this racquetball coach. And what he said was, life is a series of choices that have percentages. So in racquetball, when you're standing back, what are the percentages? How low can you hit that shot and away from the person without missing it? Or can you just hit it high? You have a 100% chance of making it. You take some risks. And I remember the teacher looked at me and he said, and that's how it is with life. We have percentages of risk in what we're willing to do. And my percentages of risks when I was drinking were out the window. I didn't care about anything. I was like, risk? Because it numbed me to actually thinking. So yes, did I get wiser? By cutting alcohol out of my life, I knew I would no longer do cocaine, because every time I drank, I wanted to do coke. The way some people like to smoke, it's just coke. It's just what it did was it made me more garrulous and more willing to stay up till the sun came up, and putting myself in bad situations when I'm staying up till the sun comes up. Whose house did I end up in? Who am I with? Who are these unsavory characters around me? Why are we driving in a car holding all these drugs? You know, all these choices you make, high percentage risk. So all my percentages of risk went way down when I quit drinking. So yeah, in that way.
And with that increase in or decrease in percentages, how did that change your relationship to music and the desire to make it and participate in what was up to that point a full immersion in the chaos of potential? You know what I mean? Like, I will say that as somebody who's, I have an addictive personality and I ebb and flow with it, and I'm doing a sober October thing, and it's great. And I actually really needed, this is a little bit more candid than I meant to be, but we'll just finish the sentence. I've been looking forward to it in a way, because it's just been I've been a little bit too crazy. I'm about to have a kid. A little bit nervous about that. Also feeling well, once I have a kid, then I'm going to have to be a better person, a better version of who I am right now, which I'm excited about. But in the meantime, okay, there's that mentality.
I love this. This is good. Keep going.
Okay. And so, but I've been kind of just partying a little harder than I might normally be, to the point where I'm this is definitely interfering in some level with a larger person that I want to be. And so having this October thing and the tradition of Sober October coming around, I saw myself looking forward to it. Because if I'm not a guy, if I drink, I've never been a guy that's waking up at somebody else's house. But I'm a guy some stranger's person. But maybe versions of that. It's a guy who's played many shows, driving across the country by himself. There's versions of it. But it was never crazy, the last guy in the bar kind of lifestyle. But it was I can drink and get my shit taken care of, but I'll drink 7 days out of 7.
Yeah.
And I'll drink, 4 beers 7 days out of 7. And that's what I've been doing for a long time. And so I got to this, date, and I was looking forward to it. And then it's just really strange, because I'm, October 1 rolls around, which is 3 days ago as of this taping. So don't pat me on the back too hard. But it was no problem, in a way, to just because I was so excited for it. But what I'm saying is, it does change my relationship to going out to shows. I've actually gone out twice now. Once was to see you at Jane's Hideaway, where I didn't drink. But it's a little bit more of the things that I associated with music and socialness were also inextricably linked to alcohol and its pleasures. And so to not have that be part of those things changed my relationship to going out and playing music. And as a guy that I'll say too, I've smoked pot. I don't do it as much as I used to, but it's been a huge part of my musical side, as many of us, might identify with. And particularly the music part of it, to finish songs kind of got to be sober, but to have that initial groove or the cool little couplet in your head, that's sometimes helped with some of that stuff. So in absence of all of that stuff, my question to you is, did it change your desire to make songs? Was there a period where you didn't feel it so strongly? Did you have to relearn how to ride the bike? Stephen King talked about that when he sobered up. He was just I've got to get sober or I'm going to die. And if that means not being able to write anymore, I guess that's a choice I'll have to make. And he did. And then he found that, I still want to write. Surprise, surprise. That's a very long setup.
I liked it. No, everything you said, I hear you. I totally hear what you're saying. For me, it was really easy not to drink. So it wasn't like I was an alcoholic, even though I went to AA, and I would say, yeah, I'm alcoholic because I drink alcoholically. Mm-hmm. But it was really easy for me not to drink. And I used to go, oh, I'm going into my self-imposed rehab is what I always called it. And I wouldn't drink for like 60, 80 days. No problem. And I would be so much more productive. Mm-hmm. My disposition was way sunnier. Mm-hmm. I'd go on walks. Every day I was happy. I was painting my own merch. I was working on songs. And I used to sell T-shirts at my shows years ago that said, I drink like Poltz. I sold so many of these because I was known as a drinker. Like if you look online, you could probably find one. I drink like Poltz, and it was like it was stamped sideways and kind of messed up. And that was my shtick. Was like I used to tell people I'm the Dean Martin of folk singers. You know, I really loved having a bottle of wine on stage and drinking it all myself and having shots come up too. And I said it was all part of my show. And my shows would be like 3.5 hours long. Yeah. Like the audience would leave. I would fall off of the chair. I mean, it was a mess. Yeah. I'd be naked, like several times, just naked on stage, just taking chances. I'd wreck stuff. One night I took my guitar. I had a Taylor guitar I bought from a guy on the Penny Saver, my first guitar I ever really bought. And I grabbed that guitar, and I was at Kelly's Pub. We were a duo, the Rugburns, and I held the guitar over my head. I go, I just bought this from the guy on the Penny Saver for $800. For that much money, you should be able to drop it. And I dropped it, and everybody's like, no. And the guitar got a crack. And I said, you should be able to kick it. And I used to wear those pointed, rough-out cowboy boots, you know, the kinds with the tips. Yeah. And I kicked a hole through the side of the guitar, this part of it. Yeah. I kicked a hole through there. And I went, well, it'll make a good mug for Guinness. And I took a pint of Guinness, poured it through the sound hole here, and I drank it through the hole out of here. And chugged it, and it was all on my face. And then I just threw the guitar down on the floor and walked out of the bar. And I don't even know where I went. Probably ended up in Mexico or something because I lived in San Diego. But that was how I used to drink. So I drank alcoholically. Like my friends always said, they did a quote about that they used to say about Hank Williams, the original Hank Williams, Hank Williams Sr. They said, oh, Audrey used to say, old Hank can't have just one. And my friend always said, old Steve can't have just one. I would never go out and just have a beer. I would see people, I go, why? I always used to say, why? Like, my friends would drink at lunch and just have a beer. I'd look at them, how can you do that? If I was drinking to get hammered. I never once drank and didn't get hammered. So I had like an alcohol reaction to it where my face would get red. You know, like a lot of people in like Japan and different areas have like an enzyme that's different for alcohol too.
Which flush,
yeah, and Native Americans a lot of times. And I feel like I have something in me that has an allergic reaction to it. And in AA, they always go, yeah, you broke out in cuffs. Like, like there's all these things people say in AA meetings, you know, like we tried moving, we tried having a baby, we tried this, we tried that to stop drinking. You know, we switched from brandy to scotch to beer. They always do this preamble in AA. And there was a funny thing about AA too, where there was this guy I knew named Errol, and he'd always go, hello, my name's Errol. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, and I'm grateful to be here today. And I loved him. He was this beautiful guy who worked at the San Diego airport. He was gorgeous, this black guy that was just like well-built. And he had a problem with drinking, but mostly with heroin. And he'd always go, and I remember one time in a meeting, he goes, you know what I like about being here in AA? You could be sitting in a room and somebody's sharing, and they'll say the most horrific thing they ever did. I was at a meeting once, and I heard this guy say, I'm so embarrassed about what happened. I got really drunk, and I tried to fuck a chicken. And this guy in the back goes, oh, I did that too. And so we lost Errol. He relapsed and OD'd and died. Wow. But you hear these stories of people going back out is what they called it. So for me, it was easy not to drink. And when I didn't drink, I was way more productive, and I knew I was more productive. I don't think it helped my show. I think I have this reckless side that I used to drink on stage, and I knew I would vomit eventually, and I would bring the mic outside so people could hear me vomit. And I'd bring it out, and I go, I'm gonna throw up, you wanna hear it? And they'd go, yeah! And I'd bring it out, and I'd vomit right in front of the bar into those planters that were out there. And I'd come back in, chug a beer, people would be screaming, I'd rip the curtains down, pour them over the curtains I'd put over my head, like Saudi Arabia, like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
I'd have them warm, but they were green curtains. And then I'd start singing like Ava Nagila for some reason. And everybody would be going nuts. I'd stand up and I'd go, watch me stop the fan. And I'd stand up on a table and they had these ceiling fans. I'd stop it with my head. And I'd get a little cut on my head. People would scream. They wanted more of that. I'd be naked on stage. Like these shows, I'd go, who's got drugs? People would throw up drugs. I'd just do them on stage back in the 80s. And there would be a line to get into this bar. And then I would take the mic stand and ram it through. There'd be a beautiful mirror that said Guinness, those beautiful mirrors. And I'd smash it with the mic stand. And I'd wreck another mirror. I'd set the curtains on fire. And then I'd go in to get paid, because we would play like every Friday night at this place called Kelly's Pub. On Saturdays, I'd go in, and Nick was the owner. He was from Ireland. He'd go, well, Steve, you're supposed to get $300 for the gig, but you did $400 worth of damage, so I'll take it out of next week's pay. If you wouldn't destroy the place, you'd make some money. And I'd always be sheepish and go, I'm so sorry, Nick. I'm not going to do it next week. And sure enough, I'd go in and it'd be worse. I would destroy the place. But he was bringing us back because we were making money.
Like how this is, I've heard stories of other guys that just were like, basically self-immolating in front of people. And that, what a spectacle that is. Amazing.
The crowd loves it.
Yeah, of course. But also those people don't live very long.
No.
And so how did you square?
Oh yeah, this is great.
As you're like, okay, how do I do a show sober now? And
I came up with the ultimate line. I was really scared. And when I had to go to rehab, and I said to this guy, I don't like the thought of saying I can never drink again. And the guy in rehab looked like Ernest Hemingway. And he was this like gnarly dude with the white beard. And he goes, no, you can drink. Just say I can drink tomorrow. You just can't drink today. And I go, ooh, I like that. So I can say that? He goes, yeah, just say, I'm going to drink tomorrow. I just can't drink today. Every day say that. And it really helped me. And then I said, but I'm really worried what people will think of me, because they're used to seeing me drink. I have shirts that say I drink like Poltz, which made the guy spit out his thing. What did the shirt say? Like I had a whole cottage industry
identity
of being this drunk.
Yeah.
And I loved Charles Bukowski. I loved the Replacements. Like the Replacements were drunk. All my heroes were drunks. It's so weird to say this now because it sounds so dated, and here we are 2024. But it's like all my heroes were drunks. Dean Martin loved him, all these people that were wasted. And so then I said, I know what I'll do. I'll get fizzy water and put cranberry juice in it with a lime, and it'll look like I'm drinking vodka cran. Like I was so worried that people wouldn't like me. And then finally I just went, oh no, I don't drink. And people would send shots up like they wouldn't. They go, what? And this was my answer to them. If I drink, I'll do Coke. And if I do Coke, I'll have a heart attack and I'll be dead. And you don't want me to die, do you? No. And that just...
way to throw it back on them.
It was great.
Totally, yeah.
I did like jujitsu.
And did you still have fun at the shows? Did you have less fun? What was the feeling there?
Well, you know how they would say, have a drink to take the edge off? Why do you want the edge off? That's what I learned. I went, wait, I like the edge. I like that nervousness. It was weird, Corby. At first, it was an adjustment because I was used to having a drink. And now I'm like, I can honestly look you in the eyes and tell you, I will never drink again. I just know it. It's not even, I'm always in bars. My wife drinks. I'm around people drinking. I have no desire at all because I get so much more done. And my creativity went up because alcohol was just slowing me down. And yeah, I'll never drink again. It's weird to say that, and I have no problems saying it.
I mean, I that's so beautiful, and a way to be able to make that leap from needing to say, well, maybe I'll drink, but just not today, to now I'm committed. Because it's the commitment side of it, too, that's scary.
I don't go to meetings anymore, though, which AA people say. If you sit down in a barber chair long enough, you're going to get your hair cut. There's all these sayings.
There's people, that's a lot of ringers, don't they?
I know all the lines. But I went to so many meetings, and I think You know how people go to rehab and they spend so much money to go to Promises in Malibu and all these places. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to stop drinking, if you really want to, you can do it for free. You don't need to go to rehab. You know what you do? You go to an AA meeting and it's free. Mm-hmm. If you want, you can put $1 in the jar. It's like the YMCA of rehabs. You know what I mean? Like if you say, I want to start exercising, I'm going to join this expensive gym. No, you really want to get sober. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, go to an AA meeting. You'll see priests, you'll see police, you'll see fire people, doctors, nurses, all different, lawyers, bums, anybody. And you're sitting there with all these people and you're learning, and that's all you have to do. It's kind of simple. I mean, it's hard, but it's free. If you want it, it's there.
I've never been to an AA meeting, but I'm attracted to them. I've seen them on TV shows, and I liked those scenes.
Oh, yeah,
The Wire. There's a scene on The Wire, the first season of The Wire, with Steve Earle comes in. And,
I remember this.
Do you remember? And I can't remember the character actor's name. He's brilliant. This black guy, and he plays like he and his buddy are just like junkies. And he just kind of on a wild hair just walks into this meeting, and Steve Earle sort of gives this. Steve Earle's a great actor, incidentally. He gives this speech, and like I cried like hearing the speech, and then it cuts to him, and he's just like so moved and convicted and floored, and he like stands up. God, it makes me teary just thinking about it. But he just like stands up, and he's like, "I've been sober for 1 hour." God, you know, and it's just like fucking. That's like some people when you're right there, man. That is the biggest thing in the world, and like to have people united by their weakness and their vulnerability. I don't think there's anything more human than that. You know, I think that's what is attractive to those things. And I think like, by comparison to
this
stop
is
crying.
Beautiful. No, I love it that you just cried over this. That's what happens in these meetings.
Yeah, no, it's so raw and vulnerable because people, you know, if you sit with for 1 second and you're just like honest with yourself for 1 fucking second, you can just be like, yeah, this is not what I want. You know, and it takes like it's one thing to say that and know in your heart, but you can do a zillion other things like pick up your phone and look at anything for 1 second and be distracted and not ever have to deal with it. But to like take that one tiny step toward dealing with being a slightly more positive version of yourself is really one of the most courageous and vulnerable things that a person can do. And then to be in a room with other people who have taken that one tiny step is like, wow, that is an army of positivity, you know, like really, really wonderful.
And another thing you always hear in those, that's beautiful what you just said, by the way. In those meetings, like some people say, I have 1 day sobriety. And somebody else will say, we all start with the same 1 day. That's it. Like that's all we have is what we have today. Like you see, like on November 30th, I'll have 20 years of not drinking or doing cocaine. 20 years. But it's no different than somebody who just stopped a week ago. I always say to people like that, because I talk about it on stage. I don't get all preachy at all. I just say, man, I would get so wasted, blah, blah. I tell stories or sing some song. I make it funny. Somebody always comes up and goes, man, you really inspired me to blah, 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 or this, or, hey, I got 2 years. And I call them mini meetings because I don't go to meetings anymore at all. I have friends that go all the time. And you have a home group and you sponsor people. You have sponsees and you have a sponsor. I don't have any of that. I did. But once I got sober, my new addiction was work because I need an addiction. And I got so into my work, I eventually had no time for anything because I was like going full bore chasing this thing where I've seen, if you were to look at my career on a graph, it's constantly, and my friend Oliver Wood from Wood Brothers says, my career is the best kind of career. He goes, it's a slow rise to the middle. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't need, I mean, of course we all would like to sell out Bridgestone or something, but do we, I don't know. I have a slow rise to the middle and I'm playing to loyal fan base of a few hundred people and they're buying my merch. I make a living. I pay my rent, my mortgage, and I'm able to do this for a living with stuff I create with my hands. There's no better gift.
It's such a gift.
I wouldn't, and I said this the other night, Bob Lefsetz came to my show, who's a music blogger.
Oh man, he's
and he reviewed it. I'll give you the review. You can put it up on this thing.
Love to.
And he came to my show at McCabe's. You know McCabe's in LA. It's a guitar shop for those of you listening out there, and they do shows. It's a legendary club. that, by the way, I used to drive up to from San Diego to Santa Monica, California, and I would see Loudon Wainwright III on stage. And I would go with this girl who I was dating at the time named Anastasia, who went to UCLA. And it was the 80s, I think. And I would drive up there, and I would watch Loudon Wainwright play. And I remember I said to Anastasia, I said, I can do that. She goes, what do you mean? I go, I can do what he's doing. I just can't do it yet, but I can do it. This is my future. Like I was in the Rugburns wearing a dress on stage, pouring beers over my head, playing naked. But I go, I can do that. And I saw my future in what he did. And I thought, if I could one day play McCabe's, I'll have made it. Because that's where all the heroes I saw played. Townes Van Zandt, Guy Clark, Peter Case, all these different people that would play there were playing McCabe's, Victoria Williams, you know what I mean? Cindy Lee Berryhill, all these people were playing McCabe's. And I was just like, I don't want to play the Enormodrome. I want to play McCabe's. These are all the writers I like that are saying stuff that relates to me. And now I play it, and it sells out. And Bob Lefsetz came, and he hung with me backstage and then reviewed the show. And I'm just like, holy shit.
You're living the dream.
But do I want more? Yes, we always want more. But playing McCabe's is like, to me, it's like, wow. It's almost like, and I told Loudon this because I had toured with his son Rufus back in the 90s. Me and Rufus toured with Lisa Loeb. We both opened for Lisa Loeb.
I love Lisa.
Yeah.
I love I don't know Rufus personally.
I just reunited with Lisa 2 weeks ago in LA. And but anyway, she took me and Rufus out, and we both opened for her. And we were both actively drinking, me and Rufus. He would order Bushmills, and I'd order Jameson because I said I was Catholic, and Jameson was Catholic whiskey, and he'd get the Protestant one. And we were drinking. We're both opening for Lisa Loeb, and I remember one night Rufus called his dad, Loudon Wainwright III, after I played a set. And he goes, Dad, I met your illegitimate son. His name is Steve Poltz. And Rufus was getting mad because I was selling a lot of merch. I would go on, or Rufus would go on. We'd always flip a coin, and then Lisa was the headliner. And it was really funny because one night Rufus goes, I'm going to ruin your merch sales tonight. And I go, how? He goes, you'll see. Because Rufus would talk about being gay on stage, and it would turn off. Like we would be in like Omaha, Nebraska at the Ranch Bowl, and there'd be guys that were cowboys that'd have to take their girlfriends to see Lisa Loeb sing.
They already
you say, and they're mad they have to go, and they're like cowboy dudes. Yeah. And then here's Rufus Wainwright, a guy
to make
on
it
stage
even worse,
who's gay, who's saying on stage, by the way, and I remember this almost verbatim. This is a song I wrote when I used to watch the gay men's porno channel, and I'd see these beautiful Greek god bodies, and I would just love watching all these beautiful men writhing around. And these cowboy guys would be like horrified. And they would start booing. And people would like yell, boo. And then Rufus Wainwright would end his show sometimes early and go, good night, fuckers. And then he'd go, you guys are a bunch of gangbangers. That's what he called them. He goes, I wish I could think of something more intelligent to say. And then he got off stage, and this one woman who had like this permed blonde hair, I've never forgotten this, she grabbed him, and he thought she was going to compliment him. And he's getting off stage. I was standing by him. She goes, excuse me. And he goes, yes. And she grabs him by the arm, and she goes, you suck. And then he goes, your hair sucks. Like, Rufus Wainwright was so funny. And then he goes back to the merch area. And so he was getting sick of me selling a lot of merch because obviously I wasn't talking that way on stage. So he goes, I'm going to ruin your show tomorrow, and you're going to sell no merch. And so I'm playing my show, and Rufus Wainwright walks out on stage during my set, grabs the mic and goes, how do you like the very handsome Steve Poltz tonight? Don't you love him? The crowd starts cheering. Then he leans over, grabs me by the neck, and kisses me on the mouth, tongue. And I don't pull back. I'm like, I don't care. I'll make out with him. So I'm making out with Rufus Wainwright in front of this crowd. And I sold no merch that night. And he was right. Like, it was so funny, man, the stuff that I saw happen on that tour. Like, it was fantastic.
I mean, that's part of the joys of touring and just of the unpredictability of night to night, especially with a character such as Rufus Wainwright, who maybe we'll get to go on tour someday or not. But I'll always love Cigarettes and Chocolate Milk, which is
it's so good.
Favorite.
My favorite is that debut record, and you hear the opening line, I don't want to hold you and feel so hopeless. I don't want to smell you and lose my senses and smile in slow motion with eyes that lie. So I'll walk through the... God, I used to hear that every night, and I would be so into it. I'd be drinking my whiskey, watching Rufus Wainwright, and then I'd watch Lisa Loeb, and she's so good.
Yeah.
I love Lisa Loeb, and I just got to hang with her at Guitar Center 2 weeks ago. I did a thing for Taylor Guitars with Ben Harper and Lisa Loeb, where Bob Taylor flew us out, because flew me out to be a part of this 50-year celebration of Taylor Guitars, and I'm like a Taylor guy because I'm San Diego, and it's like being a Padres guy.
Yeah.
And Taylor's always taking care of me, so Bob Taylor flew me out, and he had me play a song, and they filmed it, and then they had Ben Harper play a song and Lisa Loeb. And it was so fun reconnecting with Lisa, because we were laughing about that tour, because it was at the height of her fame.
Yeah.
And man, she's just really great, and she's a cool person.
She's a cool person. I got to play with her at City Winery here in town. And she was just ever so charming, and we've stayed in touch since. This is before the pandemic, so that took a hit, but she'll get on the podcast, I'm sure. But that song, You Say, is one of those crazy songs that just destroyed the world.
Remember the movie?
Yeah, of course.
Reality Bites?
Reality Bites, yeah. I mean, that was the movie of my high school experience. I mean,
how fun was it to go to the theater? Do you remember the first time you saw Reality Bites, and you're in a theater, obviously, because we weren't streaming.
Yeah.
And being with a friend, and all of a sudden a film was made for you, for Corby Lanker. This film was made for you. They were thinking, they were talking about stuff. They were kind of slackers, you know?
Yeah.
That must have really affected you, because it did me.
No, I mean, that's part of the reason probably why I'm here today, why I went some different direction than going to U of I with everybody else.
Tell me about the bow tie. How did that come out? Because you were known for a while as always wearing a bow tie.
Well, I thought maybe I should have, this is like 2012. And I thought maybe I should have a shtick, because maybe that would be a good idea. You know, I've tried many things.
No, I love that.
And that
you
was a
had the bow
phase.
tie.
I had somehow come across this velour smoking jacket at a secondhand store, and it fit me really well, you know? So I had half of this kind of ensemble-y thing. And then there was a guy in town, Otis James, I think that's his name, and he would make these like bespoke bow ties, kind of customized one, and I paid him like $100 for a bow tie and had my name embroidered in it. I was like, cool, now I have a shtick. I like things that I have like one of everything.
Yeah.
I'm like that kind of person. This guitar, I bought this guitar new in 99.
Whoa.
It's the only Martin
great
D18.
looking.
It's beautiful. And all of those are, you know, it's honest abuse.
What
that's
about
gone
your
into
hair?
that
Let's
guitar.
talk about your hair. You have great hair.
Steve.
Like, when did you start having it, like realizing, God, I have this cool, messy look of hair?
Steve, that is an uncomfortable question for me, but I will try to answer.
Well,
it.
I love your hair. I love your
in
pictures.
high school, all the guys that I thought were like, oh, that's a handsome guy that gets girls that I want to get. They always had straight hair, and so I straightened my hair, like with weird lie. All of my high school pictures, I just like try to keep my hair straight. And
Interesting.
But then I got into a band in high school. This is Southern Idaho, so.
Oh, right.
Which is
Where
like,
did you live?
Twin Falls, Idaho, in the Potato Patch, and which is major Mormon country. There's more Mormons per capita than Salt Lake, and all of all the hot girls were Mormons. So they were gonna they were all pretty, but it wasn't gonna be that much of a party, and. But I fell in with a couple of friends, and one of them, who was a really straight-laced Mormon guy, he was also just the most dedicated musician I had ever met. Maybe still no. He just he practiced all the time. He lived in like a house with a family that of 6 kids, I think. They all had piano lessons. They had a small little house in Twin Falls, and dominated in the living room by a grand piano. The whole room was a grand piano, and they all had assigned times of practice, every day. It was like that kind of Mormon diligence.
Whoa.
And so he was just like really good, and I
Were
was
they
just
like
a
the Von
slacker.
Trapps?
like that vibe for sure.
Yeah.
And they were all like excellent students. He went on to get a full ride to everything, and he now like works for the military doing satellites, or some variation on that. That's layman's approximation. But he was not only like really diligent about practicing, but when he was like in 8th grade, he was super into The Cure. And then he was also super into pre-CBS Fenders. Like, so he knew, this was all way over my head. I was like, okay, so Fender, I knew that, Telecaster, Stratocaster. But then I didn't know until him, like, and like CBS, the television station, bought Fender in like the 60s.
I didn't even know that till right now.
And so there's a difference between pre and post CBS. And so
really?
he loved he loved Jazz Masters, which Fender makes.
Oh, yeah, they're cool.
And so he had a Jazz Master that he bought and had refinished.
What year is pre?
I want to. It's in the 60s sometime. I don't know. 62.
Gotcha.
Somebody's going to know and they'll comment. But the electronics weren't the post anyway. So he bought another Jazz Master to make it also was totally pre-CBS. All this was so like dorky but wonderful. And to me, growing up in this like very monochromatic culture, this was like exotic. And we had it. So he and I could sing and he couldn't. That's why we started making music. And I just remember the first song we ever got together. I was 14 years old, and he had like a little, a home stereo system with the receiver, and it had 2 inputs for microphones, a left and a right. You'd stick the 1/4-inch cord, and we had like 2 Radio Shack mics, and we learned how to play this Cure song called 10:15 Saturday Night, which is a pretty ambitious song actually. It's like kind of weird chords up high on the neck, and he just showed me where to put my fingers, and we both played it, and we recorded. We had the mics between our knees in this basement in his bedroom, and we played 10:15 Saturday Night, and I was fucking on fire. That was it for me, dude. And it was just like, we can make music that we hear on tapes. Like, that was this leap that was so gargantuan to me that made all of a sudden just like brought everything out in the world right within my fingertips. All you had to do was learn it. It was so crazy. And then so my whole high school time, I started getting deep into The Cure, and that was when 9 Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine came out. He also had a sampling keyboard, and the guy was just like crazy. So we learned how to play Head Like a Hole, and we'd like play Mormon steak dances, and just like play these crazy songs.
Would you play those songs at Mormon steak dances?
Yes, and they just were like, people, and the adults were like,
how would you do I Wanna Fuck You Like
We didn't do that one, but we would cover that. I knew that song, and that was my, like, when you said at the beginning of this conversation, as a kid hearing that one song, and you were like, when I heard that song on Pretty Hate Machine, I was like, whoa.
How old were you?
That is so fucked. I was 15.
But
probably.
You weren't Mormon.
No, but I was super, super Christian. And in fact, my parents were so evangelical that they wouldn't let me be a Boy Scout, because Boy Scouts were dominated by the Mormons, and their number one fear of when I was growing up was that the Mormons would get me.
Are your parents still evangelical?
Yeah, very. And it's like, that's a whole other conversation. And wonderful people. And to this day, I'm like, a huge part of the way I am is because I had like an outstanding father, like just a really loving, dedicated dad who wasn't two-faced about his faith. He's just like brought it home and practiced it, does to this day. And consequently, everybody who knows him loves him. He's kind of a saint anyway. He's like a better person than me morally, which has affected me a lot. But
Dude, my dad
he can't play guitar, so take that, Dad.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Which is what you want your dad to be, I think. Right?
Oh, my dad's way better than me morally, yeah.
That's really telling.
Yeah, so you lived there, which is so... Idaho, I've just really fallen in love with in the last 5 years. I was like, why do I never play Idaho? Now I play it all the time. I've become very good friends with this guy who puts on the Sawtooth Valley Gathering in Stanley.
I want to play that so bad.
And you're wearing a Stanley hat.
I love. This is my favorite. This is my favorite place in the world.
The Stanley Baking Company is the best bakery I've ever been to.
That little oasis of a place, man. It's so special up there,
dude. And
I don't even want to talk about it on the pod because I want to keep it kind of secret. But
I have so much fun in Idaho, and I didn't know that you could have such Boise's now a regular stop.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, Boise's also kind of gotten a lot more awesome in the last 10 years.
Boise's cool.
Yeah, the Tree Fort Festival, the Tree Fort guys really have built that place up for that. And Christine, our friend Christine Bertal in Sun Valley. With that.
Dude, that airport's so cool, Sun Valley. When you're there, everybody is like, that's the 1%. Anybody that's flying out of there, you look at them, they got like a dog 1%. With them. They have such entitlement. Yeah. You want entitlement? Go to that airport. It's amazing.
I've never been to the airport, man. They don't.
That airport is like an Erewhon.
Yeah.
For those of you who know Erewhon, which is like this really upscale store in Los Angeles, there's like, you ever been there?
No.
Okay, there's like 5, maybe 6 Erewhons, and it's ERAWHON, Erewhon. Now that you know of it, it's like you think Whole Foods and stuff is expensive. Erewhon's on another level with the best products, the best food bar. There's one in Silver Lake. There's one in Pacific Palisades. I was there recently, and I saw Margot Hemingway there. And but it's Erewhon. You'll crack up. Now that it's in your consciousness, and that's what Sun Valley's like. Sun Valley is one big Erewhon.
It really is.
It's so there's more billionaires in that little town than anywhere.
It's crazy. That place is. It's funny because I would have said it's a little too snooty for me, and like having grown up in Twin Falls, which was 60 minutes away, basically, but also a universe away. It was always like a place that other people got to go to, and you'd go, and some of us skied up at Baldy. But we just went there in August. I played a show. They let me. I was invited by Christine and the people who run the Hemingway House, because Ernest Hemingway lived there.
Oh yeah.
They had me do a writer in residence at the Hemingway House, because I have a bit of a book.
Tell me about a writer in residence. What does that mean?
It just means that it's kind of like I don't know. It's an honor. It's an invitation to come and live at a spot. And
is that where he killed himself?
Yeah, right upstairs from the apartment where I was. And
okay, so you're in a little apartment, and it's called a writer in residence, and they deem you worthy enough. And how long do you go there for?
I was only there for the week that I was this time, but okay, so you can kind of.
They block it out for as long as you want it?
They block. I think it's. I don't know. I was invited for a week, so that's what I went.
And what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to show them what you did, or is there any?
I think that different programs do different things. There's no stipulation. It's just enjoy, absorb the vibe.
Who'd you go there with?
My wife. But we had the best time. It was a truly magical time. Partly
is it on the water?
It's right on the Bigwood River in a patch of land that is so special. It's basically right in the center of town, and yet from the apartment you see no one.
What town?
Ketchum.
Ketchum,
Sun Valley. Yeah. It's right there, and it's like literally 2 minutes from the downtown section.
Say Ketchum again real fast.
Ketchum.
Bless you. Okay, go on. But anyways.
Anyway, we had a great time there. We had, and
sorry.
Then also they have a
say
music
Ketchum one more time. Just one more time.
Ketchum.
Mustard.
All right.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Also, they have a great secondhand clothing store there that is very bespoke and awesome and affordable clothes. And you would love it. It's freaking great place. Great people run it. And
have you ever been to Sisters?
Constantly. No, but I want to. That's another place.
There's a vintage store there called Big Chief. It's the best vintage store I've ever seen. But go on. I want to hear more. So when you were in there.
Anyway, the last time it was a really great visit, and I saw for the first time.
How did you feel being in the Hemingway place? Did you create more? Was there
I wrote
energy?
one. I mean, I write a lot. That's my. I'm constantly doing it. I'm working on a novel right now, and then I have a Substack thing that I build up that I post every Sunday, a short story or some kind of essay. So
I'm going to start reading it. So by the way, I would like to say for anybody listening out there, I'm a huge fan of your email.
Okay, this is that.
I'm a super, I don't know that you know this about me, but when one comes in, I get excited.
That's very sweet, man. Thank you.
And sometimes I look at your pictures a lot, at your hair. And I always go like this. I go, man, Corby is
it all up right now.
No, I go. I remember I sometimes say to myself, I go, Corby's a really good-looking guy. Like you really are. No, I mean that. Like you're like really a good-looking guy. Like you have good style.
Thanks, man. Well, you have good style too. I remember one time I saw you 2 years ago at outside the I was going to call it the Urban Cowboy, but it wasn't that. It's the coffee shop.
The Post.
That's also good.
Frothy Monkey.
No,
Ugly Mugs.
Ugly Mugs. You were outside the Ugly Mugs with Sharon, and you were wearing this Ironheart, this bright red felt Ironheart shirt. And that was the first time I came in contact with Ironheart, and I was just like, that. And that like set me off on a tear. I was like, yesterday's podcast taping, I was wearing my black Ironheart shirt. I have way too much Ironheart from that initial meeting.
Okay, so
you are a man of style, and
But let's talk about you. So when you were there, I just want to go back to this one more time. Okay. Do you believe that energy shifts and helps you create? So by being in the Hemingway space, I know you say you write all the time, and so you're writing stories. How many books do you have out?
Just one right now, but I'm working on
one more book than I have.
I
want to write a book, so I was going to ask you. I asked Jeff Tweedy this, and Jeff Tweedy told me, I was on Cayamo, and I said, Jeff, tell me, I said to him, I really love your book, the first book about getting sober and, leaving Uncle Tupelo and Wilco and all that stuff. And then he had this other book called How to Write One Song. I go, I need to write a book. I go, do you have any tips for me? He goes, and he said, Steve, what I recommend is speak it into your phone. And if you can be around somebody who wants to hear your story, speak it around them. So it makes it interesting for you, or just speak it if you're good at that while driving, and then start transcribing it because it'll make it really readable. I want to know, what are your thoughts on that?
That's really profound. I think that's a great idea, especially for a natural yarn spinner such as yourself. Like your on stage persona and bits and banter. That's what I wanted to say is so exemplary that I feel like it would naturally lend itself to that.
On stage banter bits, I love stumbling into stuff. Like I know I'm really good friends with Paul Thorne, who's a really good banterer, and also with Todd Snyder, and John Craigie. We have the same manager. There's certain people that are out there doing this, and like they'll write out a lot of their bits, so they have them so down, almost like Leonard Cohen when he would play. My friend played drums for him, Raphael, and he would say it was like Tai Chi to Leonard Cohen, because a certain part of the show he'd have an X on the floor. He'd know to lay down, take off his hat, put it over his heart and say, I was a young man with a dream. I was in Montreal. And he would have this whole thing. And that's how, like, certain people have their bits so down. And mine are more reckless, tangential. Going out. I just love. I like to have, like, I know there's points I want to hit in it, but I want to take it on a whole nother thing and evolve what's happening, because I want every show to be different. And so I really want to make a book. So hearing that you have this book and that you're writing these short stories, because I'm a big fan of short stories. Do you like Flannery O'Connor?
Yeah.
Cool.
She's super influential. There's a book called The Life You Save Might Be Your Own. It's in this bookcase behind you. And that was where I discovered Flannery O'Connor and a couple other people who kind of changed my life.
Do you read a lot?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Does it inspire you then to write?
It does.
Do you have any op-ed writers you like? Because I get really excited when Maureen Dowd has a piece in the New York Times, because her vocabulary is insane.
Yeah,
and she's always quoting stuff from Shakespeare. And I always get really excited when she has a piece. I'm a New York Times junkie, by the way. I've been a subscriber for years. And I also love when Gail Collins and Bret Stephens go back and forth, because she represents the liberal side and he's the conservative side. And they do it by email or by text or something, but it's in a nice form. And it's so funny because it reminds me that we can be friends with people that are different, and they make it humorous. And I just love I'm a New York Times freak. Like, I get so excited when certain people have a column out. I know if Nicholas Kristof has a column out, what he's going to be talking about. I know if we're going to be talking economics, we're going to be reading what Paul Krugman has to say, and whether he's going to be a supply side guy, or like economics to me is fascinating, how all these little parts of the world are connected. Yeah. That's why I loved being a poli-sci major at, when I went to University of San Diego, which was a Catholic university, I would bring home these professors at Christmas, one of whom was a socialist who taught Nicaraguan politics, and another one who was a Nixon apologist who wrote books about Richard Nixon. I would bring them both home. They couldn't have been more diametrically opposed, and I would get them drunk, and they would both hit on my sister, and they would argue. I would start the conversation, and it was great.
Get him going.
Yeah, but it was great. It was like robust, beautiful conversations where we'd all end up arm in arm at the end of the night, and my gay uncle Louie would be playing songs on piano.
Beautiful.
You know?
Yeah.
And everybody had drank a little too much.
I mean, arguing is a form of commiserating, is a form of building community. You know, I had that, one of the guys I was talking about earlier in the band in Idaho, I had this family that I was really attached to, the Salisburys. And my best friend growing up was this guy named Nelson, and he had 3 brothers in his family and a dad, and they were sort of all Jack Mormons, and they were like the most. My dad's like worst condemnation of anyone would be that they're too worldly. That's his, like, there's nothing worse than being worldly. That's what you want to stay away from. And these people were worldly.
Like, meaning they traveled everywhere?
They just loved, the things of the world. They loved art. They were New Yorker subscribers. Nelson's dad's, Oz, had the biggest collection of records. That's how I discovered music. My parents didn't listen to any music.
Are you a New Yorker junkie?
I follow it now, mostly because of this, one of the writers, speaking of writers, she's not an op-ed writer, but she does a lot of the music writing for the New Yorker. Amanda, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Petruich.
Okay.
But she wrote the last Gillian Welch. She's always writing music reviews. And
cool.
I only just started following her and the New Yorker. And that's it's been great to get sort of like a little exposure to kind of a contemporary stream, as it were, because there's so much music. How do you even hear?
I like how you got a guy over there taking notes on what you're saying, so he knows when to put it into the thing.
He's a saint over
like
there.
You say something, I see him writing this down. This is an amazing thing. Like, they have a person that comes in and gives you, what do you want? Crepes, coffee?
Yeah, he's the court stenographer.
No, I mean, he's got waiters and waitresses outside of this place. For those of you watching, like, this is a high-end operation.
No,
it's well
serious.
lit. Yeah. No, this is cool. So you like the New Yorker?
I do. I mean,
would your dad get mad at that?
I like my parents and I talked about stuff that we have in common, as one does.
Would they like me? Your mom and dad?
They would like you. They would be overwhelmed.
I would love
as
them.
Most parents. You would love them.
Where did they live?
They live in Gig Harbor, Washington now.
Oh, I love Gig Harbor.
My brother.
Do they have a view?
They do. Yeah, they rent though. Because my brother pastors this little church in downtown Gig Harbor.
Do you remember Morse Wine Bar there?
No. I've
okay,
never
but
been.
go on. He's a pastor.
Anyway, he's a pastor of a church. They moved, and he has kids, 2 little kids.
Your brother?
They moved there to be next to the grandkids. And
he's a married pastor. It's not like a Catholic where you can't be.
Yeah, you're allowed to do it.
Okay, so go on.
Anyway, that's where they live.
Older brother?
Younger, in fact, actually.
What's his name?
Keegan.
What
Shout
a
out to
great
Keegan.
name.
He's also...
How do you spell that?
Keegan.
Keegan.
Yes.
What is that? Irish?
What the hell is Corby? I don't... my parents are named Louis and Jan. I've never gotten a straight answer out of them of like, what?
Corby,
why this?
Keegan, and your sister's
they're just
crazy.
Like, well,
and
we
her
just
name's
thought
Cuckoo.
it was, I don't know. My parents are really interesting because they're real straight, obviously. My dad's never drank in his life, never sworn. I've never heard my father swear in his life once. And held down a job. My dad is like, I come from...
He's never sworn once?
I've never heard him. And I know that, it's not like he swears by himself.
God, love him. He's a
beautiful man.
I wish I was a better person.
But my parents on the outside, you wouldn't go like, oh, those are some artful people. But they never were, they wouldn't go to art museums and galleries. But my dad had a poetic turn of soul, and so my dad was a mortician growing up. And so I've seen so many dead bodies since I was a little kid. It's just like part of my life growing up, which is a whole other thing, but pin in that. But sometimes kids would come in, and my dad had a real hard time. That was the one thing I think that challenged his faith more than anything, is like, why children? Why would a kid die?
Yes.
And these little poems would come out, like these beautiful little iambic pentameter poems that were for himself and
he wrote
his
them?
family that he would write. And my mom would tuck him into the sock drawer of the garage, and he hits this stack of poetry. There's that piece of it, my father. And the other piece is that for any sort of important occasion, family occasion, a birthday, Thanksgiving, when we moved out of our childhood home once and for all, a poem comes out. I remember 3 years ago, this is another thing that'll make me freaking cry, being home for Thanksgiving. And for the first time in a long time, all the kids are there, a special occasion. And my dad's like, well, before we ask the blessing, and he reaches under his plate and he pulls out this little, legal pad. And he's got this little poem that he wrote. And he just reads the poem to the family. I mean, come on. How beautiful is that? That's so my father has this like poetic thing. He would never say, he couldn't recite to you another person's poem. You know, he didn't like study poetry. But I think that coming from this sort of like naive need to express, I have that, like that, whatever that is. I'm super naive and arguably quite dumb in my approach, but I have some kind of latent thing in there that's just like this, what would you say? Like a surrender to some kind of celestial muse is kind of the thing. Like that's what
does he think about your writings and your mom? Like, are they united in what their thought is, or what would you say?
I don't know, man. This is supposed to be, you're the guest here. This is my, I'll try to answer that question. Then we'll bring the light back around to you, sir.
I'm Barbara Walters and you're watching Nightline.
My folks don't talk about it at all.
They don't?
No, never.
Meaning they're not into it?
I don't know I think it makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think that part of that's because of what I write about. I don't always, sometimes I'll write about Randa, my wife, like in first person as her, but that's always with her permission. But even if I don't like write like straight on about like family stuff, if I write at it, I think that it's just like, it's uncomfortable. Let me answer it this way. I have this relationship to communities where I kind of keep everybody a little bit away. And it's not on purpose. I think it's because I really am passionate about writing, and I'm really passionate about like this need to sort of tell the truth as I understand it, as best I can, not like in a rude like way, but I want to have the freedom to be able to say something true that may not be popular. And it's not like I'm inflammatory writer or anything, but it's like this need. And so I don't know. I think that I maybe have created that distance in my own family so that I can have this sense of freedom to create. I will say this, is that when I was 18 and I started getting like a little attention from the pretty girls, and I was like, I want to do this. I'm serious about music. And my parents were encouraging to the point where I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And then they were like, no, like hard no. And they were not supportive. This is all fine to talk about now because they're so supportive now and they love me very much. But at that time, they were not. And it was so like, no, that I either had to submit to the thumb or middle finger it. And I middle fingered it all the way. And we didn't talk for a minute.
You didn't?
No, not for a couple of years in my early 20s. I mean, like a little bit, but I did not let them into anything.
Do they follow you on Substack?
Yeah.
They do?
They do. They're free subscribers. They're trying to figure out how to become paid subscribers. That's how that thing works. And they've emailed me a couple of times to be like, help us figure out how to give you money. And I'm like, I will eventually. I don't know.
Do they comment at all on it?
No, but I wouldn't expect them to.
Do you feel that their lack of comment means they're just like, they don't know what to say, so they're having conversations about it in the morning?
I am sure that they occasionally have conversations about it. Like
they must be proud because you're a great
super
writer.
Proud. My mom sends me notes all the time.
Do they read any edgy books? Like, did they read Erica Jong, Fear of Flying, or anything? You know what I mean?
No, they don't read any edgy books.
Okay.
No, but my dad will just do the crossword puzzle. That's my connection to the New York Times, and I've inherited that.
Is your dad a conservative voter?
I would say so, but they would never talk about it. I think part of my reticence to involve myself politically in life is because even unto my own family, like they probably voted for Trump, but they wouldn't say that. They wouldn't ever tell me, and they would never tell anyone. And I know that if they did, it's because my parents, I think everybody has their voting issue. And whatever that is. Like my voting issue is free speech. I noticed that. Like I really care about that. Don't shut down speech. You don't know everything. That's whatever. That's my soapbox.
Yeah, I got you.
But my folks is like abortion. So if you're the pro-life candidate, you get the vote. I think that's it. But they would never say that. And we'd never, my father never yells at the TV. Do they listen to this? They probably do, but I don't know.
If they're listening right now, I just want to say, I love you guys because you raised a really cool son, and I mean it. And I would love to meet you guys. And just if I could sit with you and just one day have a piece of apple pie and a cup of coffee, because I love apple pie, but it can't be a crumbly top. It's got to be I don't want a lattice top even. I want full crust, and I want it warm with vanilla ice cream and a cup of coffee. If I could sit with your parents and tell them how much I love their son and how good of a job they did, that would make me happy.
You hear that, Mom? The pie to order, and we'll have that hang. Dude, that's so beautiful. Before we go, I feel like I could talk to you for 4 hours.
I know.
You're the most beautiful man I know, outward and in, and I've loved you for so long. And there's so much more to talk about. We didn't even talk about Jewel or anything.
No.
But we'll have to do it again sometime.
We can.
But let's play. Maybe we can play it out. You sent me that song, and we can play a song together.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Let's do it. I'd love that.
Okay, we're going to do that right now. But I'll just say, for the record, I love Steve Poltz. I'm so grateful to you for being on the podcast, even though you may be uncomfortable at several intervals. And I look forward to whatever's next, because there's going to be something.
3, 4. We roll on a conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. Mic-mac, click-clack, don't even think about looking back. Kodak, soundtrack, I remember when my ma had a heart attack. We roll on a conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. Tick-tack, tic-tac-toe. Hey, I'm still looking for Indian Joe. Where the hell did my dad go? Maybe where the river and the rainbow flow. Yeah, maybe where the river and the rainbow go. Yakety-yak at the top of the tree. My love's got a money-back guarantee. I'm living now in Tennessee, but I still scream Bahootsy. Hey, let's go join the Jubilee. Don't let the time run out on me. My mom and dad have gone to sea. We roll on the conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. We roll on the conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday. Seems like yesterday we were in our prime.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and click here to like and subscribe. You can click right there to watch another video, or click here to watch a playlist featuring songs of the Morse Code podcast. Okay, thank you very much.